In the Charles Dickens classic A Christmas Carol, the protagonist, Ebenezer Scrooge, is visited by three ghosts. The first amongst them is the ghost of Christmas past. Today, we're going to take a journey into the past and explore a history of Christmas in Battle Creek, Michigan. So come along and join me. To begin to tell a story about Christmas past, it makes sense to first get a better understanding of what life was like during the winter in the late 1800s to early 1900s. As a start, there were no electric freezers, so homes had ice boxes. Ice was harvested from local lakes during the winter. Here's a photo of men harvesting ice in 1896. Here's another in 1912, and another of them floating ice down a channel. Prior to 1900, the iceman would leave ice on your sidewalk in front of the home. A coupon system was introduced around April of 1900, and after that they would leave the ice on your porch or place it in your ice box if you were home. Families purchased booklets of certain quantities of ice to have delivered over a period of time. Here's a really incredible photo that shows the men delivering the ice and moving ice near the Battle Creek Sanitarium in the early 1900s. When snowfall was heavy, men took to the streets with shovels to clear the roads and sidewalks until they were clear, as there were no snowplows. During times of heavy snow, sleighs pulled by horses were a common sight to get around town. Homes were heated by coal and wood, and frequent visitors to the home were often suppliers of such, as well as the iceman. When you needed food, you went to town for dry goods or fresh produce from local farmers. And you went by foot, carriage, or sleigh if you had them available, or sometimes you rode the interurban. You could order your supply of coal and ice in town as well. When the sun went down, homes were lit by candlelight or oil lamps or the fireplace hearth. When weather was severe enough, telegraph lines went down and trains became stuck. As an example of this story from Illinois, where people were snowbound in a train and fed by local farmers. So this was so often the setting when Christmas and the Christmas season came around on the calendar in Michigan and many other surrounding states. In the early 1900s, one of the key centers for Christmas celebrations was the sanitarium. There are many postcards from the era depicting the winter season and the Christmas festivities that were held there. Here's the photo of a gathering at Christmas time in the sanitarium. Here's another with children dressed up as elves for a performance to be held there. Here's a card with John Harvey Kellogg signing Merry Christmas as a greeting and his signature. The sanitarium through the years issued numerous postcards as forms of not only Christmas greetings, but also promotions about the center. However, the sanitarium was not the only one sending out cards and promoting Battle Creek. Here's another in 1910 from the Merchants Bank. And here's one from the Advanced Thresher Company. Here's a photo taken in winter in 1908 outside the Congregational Church. And here are a few other winter photos from around town during this time period, which you can just imagine people hustling about in the Christmas spirit. Finally, here are some more vintage photos of downtown taken during that era, showing the various shops. As time moved on, Henry Ford built the first Model T in 1903 and later introduced assembly line production in 1914, making this winter scene in Battle Creek all more common by the 1920s. However, something impacted the Battle Creek area between 1914 and 1918, and that was World War I, with Fort Custer being established just west of the city. Soldiers stationed there often celebrated Christmas in Battle Creek, and here are a few photos of them dining at the First Methodist Church right here in town, as well as standing outside the front for a portrait. Here's also a postcard they sent out with a holiday theme. By the 1930s, Battle Creek had changed, and with holiday decorations strung across the main street. Just look at this photo looking across railroad tracks into downtown. Here's another photo from 1935 at the Grand Trunk Railroad Christmas party and one of the children's events at that party. And here's a photo of a Christmas play at Verona School in 1937. And finally, here is a photo of downtown in 1939 with beautiful Christmas lights strung across Michigan Avenue. I did not find a lot of photos from the 1940s, especially during the World War II years, but here is one from downtown taken sometime in the 1940s. Here's another of the Christmas lights. However, the post-war era look at newspapers showed the downtown was a bustling place for retail. Look at these L.W. Robinson ads. This one is from 1945. Here's another from 1947. Here's one a year later in 1948. And finally, here's one for the Land of Toys in 1948, promoting it was just 45 days until Christmas. As we arrive in the 1950s, the Christmas ads are still rolling with L.W. Robinson. Here are a few examples over the decade. Here's a photo of the Women's League Christmas event in 1952. And here's a group of children in 1955 cheerful about a Christmas play at the Augusta School. In 1958, there's a series of traditional Christmas open house tours. And here are some of the photos from that time. And here's a hilarious one in that same year taken at the Dudley School where the kids were having to learn embroidery around Christmas time. And if you look closely, none of the participants seem very happy about it. Here's an interesting photo of a Christmas gift rack at the Percy Jones Hospital, taken somewhere in the 1950s. And finally, here's a photo taken in 1959 of kids performing a nativity scene in a play at the First Presbyterian Church. As we take a sleigh ride into the Christmas spirit of the 1960s, we find a photo of carol singers in a 1962 newspaper. Also, I found this cool photo of the Banfield General Store off Banfield Road, taken in 1963. Then, in 1964, I found this interesting photo of the Mother Singers singing at the Good Samaritan Nursing Home. Just check out those horned-rimmed glasses. Looking good, ladies. Then, here's another photo of a group of women around the holidays in 1964. Then 1966, I found this cool ad by the Michigan National Bank. In 1967, we have a new advertiser for a savings and loan in the Battle Creek newspaper. Remember those? 1967, L.W. Robinson is about to drop the initials on their name and leaving it as just Robinsons, but still very much in the Christmas spirit in their ads. And finally, in 1968, turtlenecks have arrived on Michigan Avenue. Just in time for Christmas. There is a Santa Claus. The 1970s ushered in a very different time during the Christmas season for the downtown Battle Creek area. It was a time when a section of the downtown was permanently closed off as a through street and turned into a pedestrian mall. I'm sure many look back at this time as a great experiment that ultimately did not turn out so great in the long term for the downtown. But it certainly was a beautiful time for the Christmas season, at least as exhibited in the photos taken during that era of all the Christmas lights. Here's an interesting one taken in 1974 from the star at the top of the Christmas tree in the mall. They also had some interesting displays out in the open during the Christmas season, such as this Santa's workshop. Here's a photo of Tony the Tiger really getting in the Christmas spirit during that time. And here's a shot of the W.K. Kellogg Junior High Choir in front of the tree in 1975. And here's an interesting mix of photos from that period which really captures some of the beautiful Christmas lights and how different downtown was during this period, good or bad, depending on how you look at it. Here are a few really great photos of the Christmas tree at night in the Michigan Mall, as it was called, taken during this time period in the 70s. It was really a beautiful setting. And to close out that decade with some cheer, here's a photo of a choir at the Lila Hospital. As we entered the 1980s, the Michigan Mall was still quite popular. In September of 1980, 15,000 people crowded downtown for the International Festival. And the mall was still a popular place to shop during the holidays. Look at this clipping from 1982, where it was talking about the unseasonably high 52-degree weather on Christmas Eve, but you can still see people were out shopping for Christmas presents the day before Christmas. However, a year later, Lakeview Square Mall was set to open, and businesses downtown felt the pinch and the pending doom, as described in this 1983 article from July. By 1985, you can see in this article from the Battle Creek Inquirer that the Lakeview Square Mall was now the new popular place for shopping, which ultimately had an impact on the Michigan Mall downtown. And it was really a shift in retail that was occurring all over the country during the 80s, where these new types of malls that offered indoor shopping out of the winter elements around Christmas time suddenly were a lot more appealing than the traditional shopping districts in downtowns. So this situation wasn't necessarily unique to Battle Creek at the time. It most definitely was happening in other parts of the country as well. As for other things that were happening in the 1980s, here is a photo of the First Methodist Church during this time period at one of their Christmas services. And also look at this festive ad from the Battle Creek Shopper in December of 1989, which so far has to be my favorite one. In the 1990s, a new Christmas tradition began with the International Festival of Lights. This was an event that covered the greater Battle Creek area and received a lot of support from local businesses. Not only was the downtown district, but also Lakeview Square Mall and even Binder Park Zoo took part in the festivities. The light show was quite beautiful in downtown, and the city has maintained this tradition up to present day to a greater or lesser degree. Here are some photos that really show the amount of lights and the detail of the displays, particularly during the 1990s time period. In the 2000s and even up to present day, Christmas light displays in downtown have become a key feature of the Christmas season. Along with a Christmas parade in late November, and in 2018, a winter festival was held at Market Square. The Christmas tradition has long been a special time of year in Battle Creek. If you walk around downtown during this time of year, you'll not only be able to enjoy the Christmas lights and the atmosphere, you may even come across an old friend like Santa Claus. Well, that's going to do it for today's journey through a history of Christmas in Battle Creek, Michigan. If you liked today's video, please take a minute and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought, and have yourself a very, very Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching.